2006, in Hunan, China, a 26-year-long family tragedy involving unimaginable crimes came to light. It revolved around an unethical and disturbing relationship between a mother and her son. Beneath the guise of a normal family lay years of mental torment, where the son was forced to fulfill his mother's twisted desires. Gradually, the endurance turned into hatred, leading to a tragic end. The mother was murdered, dismembered, and her body discarded in a river. This case is full of shocking and captivating details. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel to explore this story with us right now. The case unfolded in Yongzhou City, Hunan Province, where the Xiao River flows through. It was May 25, 2006. Around 6 a.m., an elderly man named Ding was fishing by the riverbank. Suddenly, his fishing rod bent as if he had caught a big fish, and he pulled hard. When he reeled it in, it wasn't a fish, but something large. Upon closer inspection, he was horrified to find it was a human body, specifically a headless, bloated corpse. Terrified, Ding immediately called the police. Investigators quickly arrived at the scene, cordoned off the area, and began a forensic examination. The body was identified as a middle-aged woman, approximately 70 years old, wearing a purple floral nightgown with severe injuries on her body. The autopsy revealed that the victim was strangled to death before being dismembered. The wounds indicated she resisted fiercely before dying. Time of death was determined to be May 15th. Additionally, short hair samples and semen were found on the victim's body, suggesting she had engaged in sexual activity before her death. More horrifyingly, the victim's head and hands had been deliberately removed to conceal her identity. Police collected blood and hair samples at the scene for DNA analysis. Meanwhile, another team began reviewing missing persons reports from Yongzhou City and surrounding areas. Public alerts were broadcast on TV, radio, and local newspapers, urging people to provide any information related to the case. However, no useful information emerged at first. The incident sparked widespread fear in the community. Schools and workplaces were heavily affected, with many people afraid to leave their homes without companions. This small city was suddenly shrouded in darkness, and people could only hope the police would soon catch the culprit. Despite days of investigation, the police found themselves at a dead end. The victim's identity and the perpetrator remained a mystery. Public anxiety mounted, placing immense pressure on law enforcement. At this point, an unexpected breakthrough occurred when a man named Zhang Dai, living in Yongzhou, voluntarily came to the police station to provide information. Zhang Dai, a scrap collector with a disheveled appearance but a serious demeanor, caught the attention of investigators. Zhang Dai reported that his lover, Chen Min, a 70-year-old woman living in Yongzhou, had suddenly gone missing. He suspected the body might be hers. Zhang and Chen Min had been lovers for nearly 3 years. They often met at her house but kept their relationship secret. Zhang stated that on the night of May 16th, as usual, he went to Chen Min's house. He rang the doorbell several times, but no one answered. Thinking she wasn't home, he left. However, after several days of trying to contact her without success, he became worried. When news of the case spread and he recognized the nightgown, he reported it to the police. The police recorded his statement and decided to investigate this lead. They went to Chen Min's house, but the door was locked and no one was home. Neighbors confirmed they hadn't seen her for about 2 weeks. During verification, the police learned that Chen Min had been divorced for many years and had only one son, Lu Yingji, aged 46. The police summoned him to assist in identifying the victim's body. In his initial statement, Lu Yingji claimed that his relationship with his mother was very good. However, due to his busy work schedule, he had not visited her often and had not been in contact with her for about 10 days. Initially, the police suspected the body was Chen Min's, so they obtained a court order to collect DNA samples from Lu Yingji. The results confirmed their suspicion to be entirely accurate. The victim was indeed Chen Min, aged 70. At this point, investigators noticed something strange. News about the headless body in the Xiao River had spread everywhere. So how could a son not know his mother was missing? Why hadn't he checked on her for 10 days? Examining Lu Yingji's hands, investigators found multiple scratches and bruises. When questioned, he claimed they were the result of heavy lifting work. However, this explanation was not entirely convincing, as those in heavy labor usually wear gloves, which would not leave such scratches. Investigators questioned whether he was hiding something and whether the injuries on his hands were actually signs of a struggle. The ambiguity in his explanation caused the police to focus on Liu Yingji. They planned a thorough investigation into his statements, including his work schedule and personal relationships. Liu Yingji led a tumultuous life. He was unemployed and only worked as a part-time loader for a delivery company. His background was complicated, with 2 failed marriages, and he was currently living with his 3rd wife and children. A new detail emerged. A neighbor recalled hearing loud arguments from Chen Min's house about 2 weeks prior, but couldn't remember the exact date. This increased suspicion of Liu Yingji, as he was the closest person to her during that time. With accumulating clues, investigators believed they were closing in on the truth of the case. One detail particularly caught investigators' attention. Liu Yingji stated that Chen Min had a landline phone, but upon searching her house, police found no such phone. Checking the phone records registered to Chen Min's home, police discovered a call made from her number to Liu Yingji's on May 15, 2006. This discovery completely contradicted Liu Yingji's earlier claim that he hadn't contacted his mother for over 10 days. When questioned again about this contradiction, Liu Yingji appeared flustered and provided an unconvincing explanation that his mother had canceled her phone service a month earlier. Police recognized this as a clear sign that Liu Yingji was hiding something. Investigators decided to use forensic results as leverage to further their investigation into him. Semen samples found on the victim's body at the scene were sent for DNA testing. Simultaneously, police obtained a warrant for an urgent search of Liu Yingji's home to find additional evidence to verify his statements. The DNA test results shocked investigators. The semen matched Liu Yingji's DNA perfectly. This revelation stunned the entire investigation team. Previously, they had not compared the semen sample's DNA as they had not considered the possibility of such a sick relationship between mother and son. This discovery made Liu Yingji the prime suspect. Police immediately issued an emergency arrest warrant for Liu Yingji. When authorities arrived, he refused to cooperate, locking himself inside his house and barricading himself. Inside the house, Liu Yingji screamed and threatened to commit suicide if the police approached. The situation escalated as he threatened to set the house on fire if forced to comply. Although the police hadn't formally accused him yet, his actions were nearly equivalent to a confession. The special task force quickly implemented negotiation strategies while preparing a tactical team to act if the situation got out of control. After more than 2 hours of tense negotiations, when Liu Yingji let his guard down, the special team stormed in and successfully subdued him. He was handcuffed and taken to the police station in a state of mental distress. Faced with irrefutable evidence, particularly the DNA results, Liu Yingji gradually lost his composure and appeared visibly shaken. After hours of psychological confrontation at the investigation office, Liu Yingji finally confessed to all his crimes. However, the story he recounted left investigators in utter disbelief. According to Liu Yingji's statement, his parents had once deeply loved each other, defying strong opposition from both families. They married and moved to Yangzhou, where he was born. But their happiness didn't last. Just a year after Liu Yingji was born, his father had an affair, leading to his parents' divorce. His mother, Chen Min, raised him alone, filled with anger and resentment towards life. The real tragedy began on Liu Yingji's 18th birthday. During a small party with just the two of them, they drank alcohol together. In a drunken state, Chen Min crossed the boundary between mother and son, leading to an unethical and immoral relationship. From then on, Liu Yingji was trapped in a vortex of guilt. He admitted that for the next 26 years, Chen Min was always the one to initiate the sick relationship. Her control extended beyond their personal relationship, affecting his life. Every time Liu Yingji tried to build a new romantic relationship, Chen Min sabotaged it. When he had a girlfriend, she often pressured or directly threatened him to break up. Both his marriages failed for this reason. Chen Min did not hesitate to use the sick relationship to control him. She demanded that Liu Yingji visit her once a week to maintain their relationship. threatening to expose the horrifying truth to his wife and family if he refused. Unable to escape his mother's grip, Lu Yingji turned to alcohol and gambling to numb his mental pain. However, these habits only drove him deeper into despair and a sense of helplessness. On May 15, 2006, a minor event triggered a major tragedy. Lu Yingji withheld a small portion of his wages from his wife, causing her to suspect he was having an affair. After a heated argument with his wife, Lu Yingji left the house in anger. In his frustration, he returned to his mother's house at midnight. There, the two once again engaged in the forbidden relationship. Afterward, Chen Min demanded that he leave his wife and return to live with her. When Lu Yingji refused, she threatened to expose their sick relationship to his wife and family. These threats were the final straw. In a fit of rage fueled by years of resentment and oppression, Lu Yingji strangled his mother. Chen Min resisted fiercely, but was unable to overpower her son. Within a few short minutes, she succumbed in her own home. After killing his mother, Lu Yingji panicked. To conceal the victim's identity, he decided to use a knife to sever her head and 2 fingers, hoping this would prevent the police from identifying the body. He placed the dismembered body in a large plastic bag, then drove to the Xiao River to dispose of it. He threw the parts into the river, hoping everything would disappear in the deep water. Recounting the story, Lu Yingji could not hide his pain and regret. He admitted that his motive for killing his mother stemmed not only from resentment over physical abuse but also from fear that the horrifying truth would be revealed, destroying his family. Investigators were stunned by Lu Yingji's confession. They realized this was not just an ordinary murder case but a horrifying family tragedy where the lines between love, control, and crime had been completely blurred. Lu Yingji's story shocked not only the investigators, but also the public later on. The illicit relationship spanning 26 years between mother and son caused mental destruction and led to a tragic and gruesome ending. At the investigation office, Lu Yingji admitted to all his crimes but expressed deep regret when asked about his feelings. However, in his answers he still appeared not entirely remorseful, claiming his actions were an inevitable result of family tragedies. The initial trial at the Yangzhou City People's Court lasted 3 days. The case drew significant public attention due to its horrifying details and the incestuous relationship lasting 26 years, something unimaginable to many. The court found that Lu Yingji's actions constituted murder, with a particularly cruel and barbaric nature. While the defendant had a special family background and suffered psychological trauma from a young age, these factors could not justify the act of killing his mother. The court concluded that this case exemplified the severe degradation of social morals. This tragedy not only harmed the defendant's family, but also served as a wake-up call about distorted human values caused by psychological instability and poor education. Based on the investigation, questioning, and arguments at trial, the court sentenced Lu Yingji to death for murder. He was also ordered to compensate the victim's family for funeral expenses. After sentencing, the court allowed Lu Yingji 15 minutes for a final statement. He wept bitterly, knelt before the court, apologized to his deceased mother, and expressed deep remorse to his wife, children, and family. Despite expressing regret, Lu Yingji decided to appeal, hoping the appellate court would reduce his sentence. He claimed that he had endured immense pressure and suffering, leading to his uncontrollable actions. At the appellate trial, the Supreme People's Court upheld the death sentence from the initial trial. However, considering the defendant's previous good character, his sincere confession, and signs of remorse, the court suspended the execution for 24 months. The court emphasized that the suspension of the death penalty was the defendant's final opportunity to atone. If he showed positive behavior and repentance during this time, the death sentence might be commuted to life imprisonment. However, this possibility was slim. In prison, Lu Yingji began to show signs of change. He participated in labor and educational activities and wrote apology letters to his wife's family, seeking forgiveness. Nevertheless, the shadow of his crimes loomed over his life. After 2 years, the final decision on Lu Yingji's fate was made. Due to his positive behavior in prison, his death sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. However, to society, he remains a symbol of family tragedy and moral decay. The case of Liu Yingji serves as a stark warning about the dangers of unresolved psychological trauma. It also raises questions about the responsibility of family members in allowing prolonged control and abuse. This video ends here. Thank you for following this gripping story. If you found this video fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss more captivating stories. In Xi'an, China, in the elevator of a high-rise apartment building, a woman was found dead. Her body lay curled up on the floor, her hands covered in dried blood. Police and the safety investigation team quickly arrived at the scene. Initial signs indicated this was not a homicide. In reality, the woman had been forgotten in the elevator for 30 days, only to die of hunger and desperation. Her desperate cries for help, her efforts to find a way out. Why did no one hear or notice? Was this just a tragic accident, or was there something more sinister? You are following a true story. Let's uncover the dark secrets and thrilling details you've never heard. Don't forget to like and subscribe for today's story. Xi'an City is a gem of China, renowned for its blend of historical beauty and modernity. It was once an ancient capital with thousand-year-old city walls and has now developed into a bustling urban hub where life moves fast. The incident occurred in a high-rise building located in the heart of the city. That day was March 1, 2015, when people resumed their normal routines after an extended Lunar New Year holiday. Two maintenance workers, Liu Ming and Chen Hao, were on their way to the 15-story building to continue elevator repairs they had paused before the holiday. However, upon reaching the elevator, the atmosphere suddenly changed. Chen Hao paused, feeling a chill down his spine. A strange foul odor filled the air. Liu Ming frowned, took a sniff, and said, "Probably just trash left too long." But the uneasiness started creeping into both their minds. After some hesitation, they decided to turn on the power to check the elevator. A piercing screech sounded as electricity powered it back up. As soon as the elevator doors opened slightly, both froze in shock. A woman lay motionless on the floor, her hands covered in dried blood, her body stiff. In a panic, Liu Ming called the police while Chen Hao stood rooted to the spot, staring in horror at the elevator interior. The elevator was no longer a convenient tool, but had turned into a standing coffin, imprisoning the victim in her final days. Xi'an police and the building's safety supervision team quickly arrived at the scene. The elevator area was immediately cordoned off. Investigators in protective gear began collecting evidence. Initial forensic results identified the victim as a 43-year-old woman named Wu Mao, who lived with her family on the 15th floor of the building. Investigators concluded that the victim had died in the elevator before the Lunar New Year holiday, nearly a month earlier. But how could someone be trapped in an elevator for so long without anyone noticing? Did someone know and choose to hide it? According to the police investigation, Wu Mao was a reclusive woman, almost entirely isolated from the community. Neighbors rarely saw her interact or socialize, only occasionally noticing her quietly moving between her apartment and the elevator area. Preliminary forensic examinations found no signs of physical trauma on the victim's body. However, evidence showed that Wu Mao had endured a slow and painful death due to starvation and severe dehydration. For nearly a month, she had no food or water. Based on initial findings, police temporarily ruled out homicide and leaned toward the hypothesis of an elevator accident, possibly caused by Wu Mao's unstable mental state or a technical malfunction. However, investigators emphasized that this was only a preliminary assumption. Further evidence and detailed inspections were needed to reach an accurate conclusion. Police approached Wu Mao's family to delve deeper into her mental state at the time of the incident. Her mother and siblings were overwhelmed with emotion as they recounted Wu Mao's tragic life story. She married young, but conflicts with her husband led to a divorce just days after their wedding. This traumatic event left a deep scar on her, causing her to withdraw and grow increasingly unstable. Despite her age, Wu Mao still lived with her family as she couldn't take care of herself. About a month before, she left home and never returned. The family panicked and searched everywhere, from hospitals to places she frequented, but there was no trace of her. Knowing her personality, the family thought she might have gone into hiding for a while, so they did not report to the police. Eventually, all hope collapsed when the police knocked on their door with news of her sudden and tragic death. In fact, hearing this raises a question. During the Lunar New Year holiday, why didn't her family contact her? Even outside the holiday, a month is more than enough time to report someone missing. Why did they remain silent? The explanation given seems too forced. Perhaps there's more hidden behind this story, but these details were never disclosed. A resident on the 10th floor, Mrs. Liu Fang, told the police that nearly a month ago, she heard strange noises coming from the area of the faulty elevator. Mrs. Liu also stated that since all residents were notified that the elevator was under maintenance and everyone used the other elevator, she did not suspect anything. Police connected Mrs. Liu's testimony with the forensic report, confirming that the victim, Wu Mao, had died about a month earlier, around the time Mrs. Liu heard the strange noises. Coincidentally, the time of death coincided with the period when the building's residents were enthusiastically celebrating the Lunar New Year. The big question arises. The elevator was powered down for maintenance, so how could a mentally unstable person like Wu Mao enter and become trapped inside? Could there have been a serious flaw in the maintenance procedure, or was there an invisible hand that pushed her into this deadly trap? The investigation team decided to inspect the entire elevator system in the building, including safety mechanisms, potential technical errors, and maintenance records from the past 3 months. Any detail, no matter how small, could be the key to solving this mystery. Information gathered revealed that the malfunctioning elevator had been out of service and stuck between the 10th and 11th floors since late January 2015 for maintenance. The fact that it stopped between floors made investigators question why the elevator hadn't been thoroughly checked before being powered down. Moreover, on January 30th, 2015, 2 elevator maintenance workers, Liu Ming and Chen Hao, were called in to inspect and repair the system. According to reports, they immediately powered down the elevator and began maintenance. During the repair process, the 2 workers turned the power back on to perform technical checks and replace necessary parts. They were working quickly because it was near the Lunar New Year, a time when everyone wanted to finish work early and go home. When their work was nearly completed, they prepared to power down the elevator one final time before leaving. But at this point, a fatal mistake occurred. Later, Liu Ming admitted in his statement that they failed to follow mandatory inspection procedures. They did not check inside the elevator to see if anyone was trapped. "We thought no one would be foolish enough to step into an elevator under maintenance," he said. This blind confidence, combined with complacency and time pressure, led them to leave without realizing that Wu Mao had been trapped inside. When they powered down the elevator, it became a standing coffin, imprisoning the victim for an entire month without anyone knowing. The police also explored any possible connections between the victim and the 2 maintenance workers. However, no clues suggested any relationship among the 3. Liu Ming, 37, was born and raised in a small village on the outskirts of Xi'an. He was the youngest in a farming family and had grown accustomed to a life of hard work. Wanting a more stable job, he studied equipment maintenance at a training center near the city. Chen Hao, 34, was a fellow villager of Liu Ming. He grew up in a poor working-class family and had to leave school early to help his parents. After being introduced by an acquaintance, Chen Hao began studying maintenance and quickly became a co-worker of Liu Ming at an elevator maintenance company. Both had worked in elevator maintenance for over 10 years and were familiar with most repair procedures. Although not exceptional, they always completed their work without major incidents. This case was the biggest shock of their careers. Regarding any relationship with Wu Mao, both Liu Ming and Chen Hao insisted they had never met the victim before. "We only knew she was a resident in the building," Liu Ming stated. Chen Hao added, "She never interacted with or complained about the elevator system before." However, on the day of the maintenance work, they both recalled being warned that the elevator had significant technical issues needing urgent repairs. They arrived at the scene with the intention of working quickly to finish the job before the holiday, unaware that a procedural error would lead to an unfixable tragedy. When the tragic death of Wu Mao was revealed, a wave of outrage erupted within the apartment community. The irresponsible actions of the two maintenance workers became the center of criticism. Residents gathered in the lobby, eyes full of anger, repeatedly asking, "How could this happen?" Emergency meetings were held continuously. Residents demanded the apartment management take responsibility and implement strong measures to ensure such tragedies never happen again. Outside the meetings, police continued analyzing forensic reports. They confirmed that Wu Mao had endured unimaginable suffering during her 30 days trapped in the elevator. Experts emphasized that the lack of water was the primary cause of her death. When the human body is deprived of water, vital organs quickly begin to fail. The first symptoms are thirst, followed by dizziness, exhaustion, and eventually heart failure. For Wu Mao, this process lasted weeks, causing unimaginable pain and suffering. Additionally, Wu Mao had to endure living in a confined, airless, and pitch-black space. This was a form of psychological torment, pushing her into extreme isolation. Dried blood stains on Wu Mao's hands suggested that she had tried to claw at the elevator doors with her bare hands in a desperate attempt to escape. The image of Wu Mao's blood-stained hands haunted both the investigative team and the building's residents. Everyone carried the same haunting question: who should truly be held accountable for this tragic death? The two maintenance workers, Liu Ming and Chen Hao, were directly responsible for handling the elevator. Liu Ming, who was responsible for the final inspection, lowered his head and admitted, "We didn't thoroughly check the elevator before turning off the power. We thought no one would be there." Chen Hao tried to justify, "We were rushing to finish work because it was close to the Lunar New Year. Who could have predicted this would happen?" However, these excuses only fueled the anger of Wu Mao's family and the residents. Police officially charged the two maintenance workers with manslaughter due to gross negligence. They were also ordered to compensate the victim's family, a steep price for their carelessness. Under public pressure, the apartment management held a press conference, issuing a public apology. However, their words could not ease the grief of Wu Mao's family. This tragedy not only shocked the apartment community, but also attracted nationwide attention. Numerous articles and TV programs highlighted the incident as a harsh warning about responsibility in work, especially tasks directly affecting human lives. The two repairmen, Liu Ming and Chen Hao, were officially prosecuted for manslaughter under Chinese law. At the trial, both men bowed their heads in admission of guilt, but their belated remorse could not soothe the pain of Wu Mao's family or the outrage of the public. Liu Ming, primarily responsible for checking the elevator, confessed, "We were too confident and thought it was impossible for anyone to be inside. This is my fault," he said, with teary eyes. Chen Hao, who assisted Liu Ming, also admitted to not thoroughly checking safety mechanisms before leaving the site. "This wasn't just a personal mistake. We rushed because of work pressure and the desire to return home for the holidays," he explained, regretfully. The verdict was delivered. Liu Ming received a 5-year prison sentence, while Chen Hao received 4 years for manslaughter and serious safety violations. Both were also required to compensate the victim's family. The sentence was seen as a strong warning by the public. Meanwhile, the building management faced heavy criticism for failing to supervise the maintenance process adequately. Many residents demanded a change in management and stricter safety inspections to prevent future tragedies. This case quickly became a media focus across China. News programs, articles, and social media were abuzz with discussions. Some people commented that this was an expensive lesson in irresponsibility, while others called for extensive reforms in the maintenance and safety industry. Government agencies also intervened, ordering a review of all elevator maintenance procedures nationwide. A senior official declared, "The safety of citizens must come first. This is not only the responsibility of the maintenance industry, but of society as a whole." At a small memorial for Wu Mao, residents lit candles and placed flowers in front of the elevator where she passed away. A resident shared, "She didn't deserve to die like this. This is a lesson, not just for the two repairmen, but for all of us. Even the smallest negligence can lead to unimaginable tragedy." The case was also included in safety training courses nationwide as a prime example of the consequences of negligence. Experts emphasize that beyond technical skills, adhering to procedures and prioritizing safety must become unbreakable principles in every job. Wu Mao's story is not just a personal tragedy, but has become a symbol for the labor safety reform movement in China. A painful but necessary lesson, reminding everyone that human life should never be compromised by carelessness or personal gain. This video concludes here. Thank you for following this thrilling story. If you found it compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to catch more intriguing stories. In April 2014, in the remote jungles of Panama, two young Dutch women, Lisanne Froon and Chris Kremers, mysteriously disappeared while hiking the El Pianista Trail. The police quickly launched an investigation, but what they discovered later shocked the world. Lisanne's backpack was found on the banks of the Culebra River, dozens of kilometers from where they disappeared. Inside were nearly intact personal belongings. However, there were many unexplained strange photos, especially one of Chris with blood seeping from her temple. More than 10 weeks later, bone fragments and a shoe belonging to the two women were found near the river. Chris's bones showed signs of bleaching, raising suspicions of third-party involvement. Was this an accident or a cleverly concealed murder? The case of Lisanne Froon and Chris Kremers remains an unsolved mystery. Who is behind this tragedy? What really happened to them in the jungle? Join us as we uncover the truth behind this story. Don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling updates. Our two protagonists, Lisanne Froon, born on September 24, 1991, was the youngest in her family from Amersfoort, the Netherlands. She was a talented volleyball player and held a bachelor's degree in applied psychology in the Netherlands. The other is Chris Kremers, born on August 9, 1992, the only daughter in a family of 5. She was studying art education at Ede University in the Netherlands. The two had been childhood friends, growing up in the same neighborhood in Amersfoort. Later, they stayed close during their university years and worked together in a small cafe. There, they began sharing plans of traveling and exploring the world. Their first adventure was to explore Panama, the mysterious gem of Central America. Before the trip, Lisanne moved in with Chris at her dormitory to prepare together. They spent hours learning Spanish, planning the trip, and using their savings to buy toys for children at a local school in Panama. For both of them, this wasn't just a trip. It was an opportunity to do something meaningful for the community. On March 15, 2014, Lisanne and Chris bid farewell to their families at Schiphol Airport, Amsterdam. Both were filled with excitement for their 6-week journey to Panama, where they planned to explore nature and volunteer. Their first stop was Houston, Texas. Next, they landed in San Jose, Costa Rica, enjoying a night at a local's home. On March 17, 2014, Lisanne and Chris finally arrived in the Republic of Panama, a country famed for its natural wonders and its monumental canal. They took countless photos, capturing every memorable moment as they began their exploration. During the first 2 weeks, they stayed in Bocas del Toro, a beautiful island located south of Isla Colón in the Caribbean. Known as the Green Paradise, it offered blue seas, white sands, and vibrant coral reefs. They frequently updated their social media, sharing bright, energetic photos of their experiences with friends and family. Alongside their leisure activities, they stayed focused on the original goal of their trip. Daily, they attended a local school called Spanish by the Sea to improve their Spanish skills. They aimed to enhance their language proficiency to better support their upcoming volunteer work in Boquete. 2 weeks in Bocas del Toro passed quickly, leaving Lisanne and Chris with unforgettable memories. On March 29, 2014, they traveled to Boquete, a small mountain town in Panama known as the Coffee Sanctuary. According to their plans, they would spend about a month at a homestay there, teaching subjects like arts, crafts, music, and dance to children at a local school. However, things started to go awry when the school informed them that they were not ready to receive volunteers. This announcement deeply disappointed Lisanne and Chris, as they had previously received an email confirming their participation. To make amends for the misunderstanding, the school administration arranged a coffee plantation tour for Lisanne and Chris with an experienced guide, Feliciano, scheduled for April 2, 2014. However, with no plans for April 1st, they decided to explore the El Pianista Trail on their own. That day, Boquete's weather was beautiful, with clear skies and sunlight streaming through the dense jungle. Lisan and Chris had no idea that their decision to hike that day would forever change their fate. The El Pianista Trail is approximately 8 kilometers long, leading to the Mirador summit, offering a panoramic view of the jungle and valleys. Before starting their hike, Lisan and Chris stopped by a local restaurant to fuel up. There, they coincidentally met two fellow Dutch travelers also visiting Panama. The four quickly bonded, chatted cheerfully, and shared their travel plans. Lisan and Chris were excited and even took a commemorative photo with the two men, posting it on their social media. Their eyes reflected joy and enthusiasm with no sign of any concern. Around 11 a.m. on April 1, 2014, Lisan and Chris took a local taxi to the starting point of the El Pianista Trail. While Lisan and Chris ventured deeper into the trail, everything seemed normal back at the homestay. However, as night fell, the homestay owner, Miriam, began feeling uneasy. The two guests, usually punctual, hadn't returned for dinner as they normally would. Miriam and her family started searching around the homestay area, but found no trace of Lisan or Chris. They reasoned that the girls might have gone out with the two Dutch men they met earlier that day. Miriam decided to wait until morning to see if the girls would return. On the morning of April 2, 2014, Guide Feliciano arrived at the homestay to prepare for the coffee plantation tour scheduled with Lisan and Chris. By then, everyone was beginning to worry. Feliciano and Miriam immediately called the police to report the disappearance of the two tourists. However, it wasn't until April 3, 2014, that the authorities officially began the search. This delay later became a major point of criticism from the victims, families, and the international community. Panama's National Civil Protection System, CINEPROC, was mobilized to search for Lisan and Chris. Dozens of rescue workers, along with sniffer dogs, began combing every corner of the jungle near the El Pianista Trail. After 3 days of searching, no trace of the girls was found. The rescue team began suspecting that this was no ordinary disappearance. Police and local authorities decided to expand the search area and scale up the rescue efforts. As soon as news of Lisan Froon and Chris Kramer's disappearance was announced, Panamanian authorities quickly contacted the girls' families in the Netherlands. The Dutch government got involved, sending an investigation team and forensic experts to Panama to assist in the search. Their arrival underscored the seriousness of the case. Panamanian President Ricardo Martinelli appeared on television, promising to do everything possible to find the girls. But these reassurances did little to ease the family's anxiety. On April 6, 2010, Lisan and Chris's families could no longer wait. They personally financed private rescue services, including helicopters, to search for the girls. The search spanned a wide area, cutting through the treacherous jungle of Panama. The school where Lisan and Chris were supposed to volunteer in Boquete offered a $2,500 reward for anyone who could find traces of the two girls. This appeal spread throughout the local community, drawing more volunteers to join the search. However, the weather became their biggest enemy. The rainy season arrived earlier than expected, turning the jungle into a muddy, slippery, and highly dangerous terrain. Steep cliffs and fast-flowing rivers further complicated the search. The rescue team, led by the director of Panama's rescue agency, reported that they had scoured all 25 different jungle routes. Strangely, no trace, belongings, or evidence of Lisan and Chris's presence was found. With such an extensive search, we should have found something. This forces us to question, were they lured elsewhere, or has something more serious happened that we don't yet know about? Said the director. Doubts began to arise. How could the two girls completely disappear in an area thoroughly covered by dozens of rescuers and sniffer dogs? Unless they intentionally escaped. After Lisan and Chris had been missing for more than 10 weeks, Panamanian authorities decided to change the direction of the investigation. Instead of treating this as a regular disappearance, they began suspecting a potential crime. Investigators shifted their focus to gathering evidence and collecting statements from individuals who might be involved. On June 14, 2014, when the search was nearly at a standstill, Panamanian police unexpectedly received a report from a woman of the Ngobe tribe. She brought a blue backpack to the Bait police station, saying she had found it along a rice field near the banks of the Serpent River, close to the village of Alto Romero where she lived. Upon inspection, investigators confirmed the backpack belonged to Lisanne Froon. Inside were 2 pairs of glasses, Lisanne's passport, an empty water bottle, 2 bras, $83 in cash, a Canon digital camera, and 2 mobile phones belonging to the girls. Strangely, despite being in the jungle for over 10 weeks, all items inside the backpack were dry and intact, showing no signs of rain or environmental damage. This raised suspicions that the backpack might have been placed there recently. Investigators quickly focused on the call history from the 2 phones. Results showed a total of 77 emergency calls had been made, but only 2 connected briefly, for less than 2 seconds. The first call was made from Chris Creamer's iPhone 4 at 4:39 p.m. on April 1, 2014, just hours after they began their hike. The number dialed was the Dutch emergency service 112, but because they were abroad, the call was redirected to local emergency services. About 10 minutes later, at 4:51 p.m., Lisanne made an emergency call using her Samsung Galaxy S3. Unfortunately, both calls failed due to weak signal coverage in the jungle. The girls continued trying to call emergency numbers 112 and 911 on April 2nd and 3rd, but none connected. As the phone batteries depleted, they began turning off the phones for 14-hour intervals to conserve power. From April 5th to April 11, Chris's iPhone was turned on multiple times, but no calls were made. At this point, a strange detail emerged. The phone's password had been entered incorrectly several times. Who attempted to unlock the iPhone? Was it Chris, Lisanne, or someone else? This raised further suspicions. Did the girls suffer an accident, or had they fallen into the hands of a malicious individual? The discovery of the backpack in an area outside the previous search zone added to the mystery. Additionally, the Canon digital camera contained crucial photographs. Initially, the images showed cheerful moments along the El Pianista trail, with Lisanne and Chris smiling brightly. But as the photos progressed, they became increasingly strange and eerie, as if the girls were trying to capture something or someone in the dark. Among the most notable findings were 90 photos taken with Lisanne's Canon camera. Most of these were captured on the night of April 8, 2014, 7 days after they were stranded in the jungle. The photos were taken entirely in the dark, using the camera's flash. Some appeared random, featuring tree branches, a large rock, and the edge of a ravine. Another photo showed the back of Chris's head, with her blonde hair disheveled and blood seeping from her temple, sparking fears of the worst. One photo captured a red plastic bag hanging on a tree branch, and another showed a backpack strap placed on a large rock. While these photos didn't provide clear clues, they evoked a sense of terror, as if someone was desperately trying to send a signal. Investigators also discovered that photo number 0509, situated between 2 critical images, had been deliberately deleted. This was suspicious because Canon cameras do not allow the recovery of deleted images. This missing photo might have contained critical evidence about what truly happened. With the available evidence, 2 main theories emerged. First, Lisanne and Chris might have used the camera's flash to signal rescuers or scare off wild animals. Second, a perpetrator might have taken the photos intentionally to confuse investigators and disrupt the investigation. The presence of a deleted photo added weight to this suspicion. The backpack, containing the camera and personal items, was found intact and undamaged, despite being in the jungle for 10 weeks. This starkly contrasted with the harsh weather conditions in the area, leading investigators to suspect the backpack was placed there later by someone. Dutch forensic experts examined the backpack and found 30 fingerprints on its surface. Some prints might have belonged to Lisanne and Chris, but others could have been from a perpetrator. However, Panama's careless handling and lack of proper fingerprint storage and matching with potential suspects hindered the investigation. To enhance the search efforts and attract more help, the families of the two girls raised the reward to $30,000 for anyone who could provide information leading to the discovery of Lisanne and Chris, or those responsible for the incident. 2 months after Lisanne's backpack was found, hope seemed lost as the search hit a dead end. Then a phone call from Panamanian police plunged the Froon and Creamer's families into a nightmare. Police reported that remains of the two girls had been found along the Rio Culebra, near where the backpack was discovered. The person who found the remains was none other than Feliciano, the guide who was supposed to accompany the girls on April 2, 2014. According to forensic reports, the pelvic bone was identified as belonging to Chris Kremers, while a foot with incomplete tissue, found inside a hiking boot, belonged to Lisanne Froon. Both remains were scattered along the riverbank. A strange detail emerged. While Lisanne's remains showed signs of natural decomposition due to time and the environment, Chris's bones were stark white, as if they had been deliberately bleached. Forensic experts confirmed this phenomenon was inconsistent with natural weathering effects like rain or sunlight. At the site, a total of 33 bone fragments were recovered. The remains of Lisanne and Chris were scattered, with no evidence of wildlife interference, leading police to suspect human involvement. Feliciano's discovery raised many questions. Earlier, 12 professional Dutch sniffer dogs had searched intensively for 9 consecutive days without finding any traces. How could a local guide with just his eyes and senses pinpoint the location of the remains? The timing and location of the discovery were too coincidental. Shortly after Lisanne's backpack was found, the girls' remains appeared as if they had been deliberately placed. This led the public to suspect that someone might have staged the scene to close the case. Despite the suspicions, Panamanian prosecutors officially declared the case closed. According to them, Lisanne Froon and Chris Kremers had gotten lost in the jungle, accidentally slipped into a river, and succumbed to severe injuries caused by rocks and water currents. The victims' families were shocked by this conclusion. They believed the case had many unresolved mysteries. Suspicious evidence, such as the intact backpack, the deleted photo on the camera, and conflicting witness statements, all suggested this was more than just an accident. The Dutch government also expressed dissatisfaction with Panama's conclusion. Dutch forensic teams pointed out that Panamanian investigators' methods of evidence handling did not meet international standards, especially in preserving and analyzing the remains. Frustrated, the victims' families hired a Panamanian lawyer to file a formal complaint with the government, demanding the investigation's conclusion be overturned. They claimed the evidence had been handled carelessly and was unreliable. Additionally, several human rights organizations and international travel safety groups called for a re-investigation of the case. They stressed that failing to uncover the truth was not only unjust for Lisanne and Chris, but also posed a risk to other tourists visiting Panama. The Froon and Kremers families relentlessly sought justice for their daughters. They believed a conspiracy might have been behind Lisanne and Chris's deaths. Unfortunately, the Panamanian government has not reopened the investigation, maintaining the initial findings. Years have passed since the mysterious disappearance of Lisanne Froon and Chris Kremers on the El Pianista Trail. The case remains one of Central America's greatest mysteries, drawing attention from media, independent investigators, and international experts alike. The ongoing debates revolve around one question: what truly happened to these two promising young women? Was it a tragic accident, or was there a criminal element at play? To this day, the disappearance of Lisanne Froon and Chris Kremers remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries. The image of these vibrant, ambitious young women remains etched in the memories of their families, friends, and those who followed their story. This concludes our video. Thank you for following this gripping story. If you found it intriguing, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to catch more fascinating tales.